Hey, I'm Brad.
And I'm Eva.
This is Breva Creative.
Today we're going to be making some sea glass jewelry. First we're going to make the sea glass, and then we're going to make the jewelry. Sort of like this.
Well, my favorite part of this project is coming early today, smashing stuff. Do this in a box to avoid getting glass everywhere, and you also need to absolutely wear goggles and gloves when doing this. Duh. Once all your anger is sufficiently depleted, you can begin choosing the shattered remains that have a nice shape for tumbling. For this, we're choosing a variety of pieces. We're also throwing in some scraps from a broken wine glass, not pointing any fingers, but I definitely wasn't the one that broke it, Eva.
Hey!
Here we're adding some little plastic balls to the barrel. The glass is a little bit more delicate than rocks, and these plastic balls help to cushion it a little bit. For this round, we're using the coarsest grit that we have to get the edges nice and round. I'm a little sad because now that I've broken the red bottle, I'm a little suspicious that the color is just a coating and will tumble into just clear glass. But that's okay, clear glass is cool too, I'm just crying a little bit on the inside. Add some water to top it off to 3/4 of the way full, and you're off to the races. We're gonna try 7 days for this first round of tumbling. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully it takes the glass down quite a bit. Some of these pieces were quite big. Okay, I know it probably doesn't feel like it's been a week to y'all watching, but I can assure you it has been. Our poor glass is very dizzy at this point, so we're going to do a welfare check before we load in the next round of grit. Okay, I have never seen anything like this, and my mind is sufficiently blown. Somewhere in that week, the wine glass stem and the bottle mouth seem to have gotten to know each other quite well. They are literally stuck together with the little plastic balls in between. Other than the inseparable lovebirds, everything else turned out a-okay. We're gonna take a few pieces out that we're happy with and keep tumbling the other unlucky fellows until they're nice and smooth. And once again, we're filling with water to the 3/4 mark. The tumbler needs some air to make sure it tumbles correctly. We also need to add our little plastic balls and a lesser coarse grit for this round. We're only going to run this round for 5 days this time. It's pretty easy to go overboard and accidentally dissolve the glass entirely, and we don't want to do that. Okay, this turned out so much better than I thought it would. I think we got a little bit lucky with this bottleneck. It's turned into the coolest little ring, and it actually fits Eva's finger, which is awesome. You can see that these pieces changed a lot during this 5-day run. The edges are a lot smoother, and that's going to make for some really neat jewelry.
Alright, let's make some jewelry. The most important thing you'll need is some pliers. I like the ones with the rounded tips, but any will do just fine. I chose this triangle piece of glass, which I think will be kind of cool, and it's got this divot right at the top pointy end that will allow me to wrap the wire around so that it doesn't slide off. So I'm just going to clip off a couple inches of this really fine wire I've got and wrap it around the round tip of my pliers to create that loop for the necklace chain to slide through. If you don't have the round pliers, you can use something like a skewer or a pencil, just anything round to get you that circular shape. Go in there and twist it off, and then just clean it up a bit, and that is ready to wrap around the glass. So I'm just going to wrap this around a couple times. So I'm just going to wrap it around twice with either side of that wire. and you want to wrap that nice and tight so that it's very secure. And once you've got that kind of looking the way you like on the front, we can flip it around and look at that back. We're going to bring these two loose wires and twist them together. I like to use some pliers here just to make sure it's nice and tight. After a couple more adjustments here, we are ready to clip off our loose wire. And you can never clip close enough, so that's alright. Just take that pointy end and tuck it around or wrap it around somewhere so that it doesn't hook on anything or scratch you when you're wearing it. Just make sure it's kind of tucked away and you can't see it. And that's that. That is our first pendant. So this next technique is just wrapping a piece of glass. I've chosen this little triangular one, and this same technique will work on a lot of shapes. So if you have something round or rectangular, that will do just fine. I'm taking a medium-sized wire here just so that it's a little thicker and kind of gives me more of the effect that I'm looking for. And again, I'm twisting that around the round pliers off screen, unfortunately, but I'm twisting that up just like the other one to create that loop for your necklace to thread through. And this can be used as a keychain or whatever. It doesn't have to be a necklace. You could do two matching ones as earrings. And so you're just going to take that loop and stick it where you want the top of your pendant to be. I'm just folding these wires around each edge. As they hit an edge, I could just kind of fold them, and whatever direction they're pointing, I kind of just follow that and let the wires lead. But eventually you do want to end up back at the top so that you can twist them back around that loop at the top, and that will kind of finish the piece off for you. So I wrapped this about 2 or 3 times, and again I'm clipping it off. There's little pointy bits, so you want to twist those around so that they don't stick out and don't stab you or scratch you or catch on your clothes. And just twist that around so it looks nice. And again, there's another pointy thing, so you just wrap that around and tuck it away and you can barely see it. And that's done. This one kind of turned out to look like an A, so I'm trying to think of what friend I have whose name starts with an A so I can give it to them. Here really quickly I'm going to show you a technique for taking this thick wire and wrapping it. This is going to create kind of a textured wire, sort of like a guitar string, that I think is super cool and I love to use. So you want to clip a piece of nice thick wire, and it doesn't have to be the same color as the exterior wire, but it is here. So you want maybe 6 to 8 inches of that thicker wire, and then you want a nice long piece of the extra thin wire. And you don't want to clip that off because you're never sure how long you're going to use. So you just want to twist the two ends of the thick wire and the thin wire together so they don't come apart. And you're going to put that into the end of a drill. So just twist it down, tighten it right there onto, make sure you have both ends of the wire in there, and twist it down until it clicks so that you know it's locked in. And you just want to check the direction of your drill, make sure you're wrapping in the right direction, and you just let it spin. You can hold it with your fingers to keep it nice and tight. And about every ½ inch or so you want to stop your drill and kind of tighten up the coils, just because it's kind of impossible to lay it down super close together as you're twisting, and it's kind of easy to just let it go and then slide it back so that it all scrunches together nicely like this. You can see here it got away from me a little bit and started twisting around itself a little bit in a way that wasn't super pretty, so I had to untwist it a bit and correct. Sorry, that's a bit out of focus. And then you just kind of move on, and if there's a little catch in the twist, that's alright, it's homemade. And just work your way along the wire as long as you need it to be. You kind of are limited in length, it kind of gets floppy once you start getting too long, but you're probably good for about 1 foot of length here. And don't let it go too fast, it is spinning sharp metal things, so just be careful when you're doing this, but as long as you keep the drill nice and slow, it's pretty easy to keep track of, and I only needed about 4 inches, and I didn't even use all of that in the end. So this is what that looks like, kind of an easy technique to achieve something that looks pretty cool. So I'm going to use that to make this piece of blue glass into a pendant as well. And I'm just going to run that kind of between these ridges, and hopefully that will be another cool pendant. I'm going to clean up the end of this. There's a loose wire, just going to wrap that around because my clippers don't get quite so close to the twist. And I'm going to use this loose bit of wire on the end that didn't get wrapped, and I'm just going to twist that around my round pliers again, and a double twist, and you've got the same loop that we've been making for all of these. Again, you can make this into a necklace or earrings or a keychain or whatever you can possibly think of attaching it to. So now I'm just going to wrap this around this blue piece of glass. I'm going to back off the coil a tiny bit because it's kind of clunky to wrap that part because it is a thicker wire and it's clunky as it is, much less wrapped. And you just want to wrap that around. I'm putting it kind of between two ridges that were created in the glass and clip off the bit that you don't need. Because it's wrapped, I'm going to pull off some of that wrapping just to make that wire easier to work with. I'm going to untwist it and clip the fine wire off so that it's just the bare heavy wire underneath that I need to kind of twist around and connect. Kind of clean that up, twist it off with pliers so it's nice and tight. This wasn't laying quite the way I wanted because it was a curved piece of glass, so I just kind of am trying to shape the wire around the shape of the glass here. And now that it's good to go, I'm going to clip off my spare and tuck that sharp bit away so that it doesn't catch on anything. And we're good to go. Look at that little cutie. This one turned out pretty cool. It's actually the stem of a broken wine glass, and I think it kind of looks like a crystal or something, so I'm very excited to see how this one turns out. Here I've got a bunch of loops and hooks. They're kind of connectors for necklaces, and I'm just going to take one of the loops and use that instead of creating my own loop for this one. Just a different technique that is sometimes a little bit easier to work with. So I'm just going to take my wire and thread it through that circle. I'm going to thread it through a couple of times just to make sure it's secure. Because there's a kind of broken space in the loop, if you thread it through just once, you kind of risk it falling off. So if you do it a couple times and then twist it off, it's much more secure. And I'm going to just nestle this in this kind of notch in the top of my piece of glass and wrap that down, and I'm going to wrap it around a couple of times. You see I'm putting this on the slightly wider end of this piece of glass, which should help prevent it from sliding off. If you're just wrapping around a perfect cylinder, you risk the wire sliding off and losing your piece of glass. But because it's tapered a tiny bit, I'm wrapping it around so that it shouldn't do that. So you just want to coil it around a couple times. So you can see even while I'm working with just one end of the wire, I am keeping track of the other end of that wire, and I always like to make sure that I've got an inch or two to work with so that when I come to the end of things I have something to tie off to. Sometimes it's hard to end a piece with just one loose end of wire. It's a lot easier and more secure to tie the two ends together at the end of your piece. I've decided I need to go over the top one more time here and just kind of connect back over so that it's a more purposeful move. Sometimes when you have just one wire, it looks a little odd when you have that contrasted with a bunch of wires, so I just feel aesthetically that wrapping it around one more time over the top is gonna give the piece a more finished look. And again, I'm twisting it off, and I will clip that and tuck it away. well, that was a lot of fun for me. This is the kind of project that I can really get into, and I could do this for hours on end. I hope y'all learned something, and if you give it a try with sea glass or rocks or whatever, tag us at Breva Creative on social media. And if you're interested in this sort of thing in general, we've been thinking about opening an Etsy store, so let us know if you'd be interested in that in the comments as well. Otherwise, like and subscribe and follow our Instagram and everything for more.